Welcome to the first session of the stability and mobility part of your athletic development. Today we'll be talking through your first component of stability and mobility, what it is and why you should use it, and how we want you to implement it into your session. I'm Shane, and this is Annie, our subject. So we'll talk you through the components of each one. Stability and mobility are an important part of athletic development, and they coexist within your sport. Each one is important in its own right, but we want to empower you to make the decisions on how much of each one you want in your program. Stability is the amount of control you have of the range, and then mobility is the amount of range you have in a joint. So some of you will need more stability, some of you will need more mobility. Depending on how you are and how you're feeling through these exercises, we want you to do more or less of each one. We're going to start with stability and the exercises around stability that are going to help you in your sport and your range. A lot of the stability exercises are going to be challenged on feet because that's where your sport is played. Your sport is played on feet, and for the most part, we'll challenge it on feet. So the first exercise is a single leg balance reach around the clock face. So stand on one leg, preferably we'd rather you be in barefoot or in socks, not in shoes. The reason being is a lot of the cushion of the foot is taken away from the stability aspect of the foot. So on bare feet or single leg or on single leg stance, so stand on one leg, reach forward to 12 o'clock. Now the important point here is that the hip is forward. It's not a squat where you're sitting into it. You're remaining quite tall as you reach. So you reach into 12, you're making way around the clock, whichever side you're on. So she'll go 11 and come back to center, and then to 10, back to center. We're all going all the way across to 7 on one side and 5 on the other. We're leaving 6 for now in this phase. So as you'll see here, trying to control and rotate with the movement. It's important here that you don't stay fixated and forward. We want the knee to be able to control the motion in and out of the movement. So as she rotates, she is rotating and she's reaching, touching the floor. The other common mistake here is that you put your weight through the foot. So you go all the way through, you put your weight through the foot, and then you come back. It's taking the demand out of that left hip or right hip to control the movement. So as you go around, you're trying to get that control. There's a little bit of a squat pattern going on here. I want to keep this hip extended as you reach. It's important that that happens and it doesn't become a squat. We get to that point after. So reaching all the way through. So we're going to do one clock face, which is done. We'll do a second clock face and move on. Now, like I said at the start, we want you to decide which you need more of. Do you need more stability? Is this a challenge for you? Do you find that in a game that these things are something you need to work on? Then we'd like you to add more of these exercises to your program. Good. So that control of the knee, that knee trying to find the stability is exactly what we're looking for. We need to get away from the idea that the knee doesn't move into valgus and out of valgus. We want to teach it to go there and come out of it. It's very important because our sport will demand us to be there in these ranges, and we have to be controlled in those ranges and be able to come out of those ranges. That's really important that you develop that skill in your technique. So you're going to trial these, and each time you do them, you become slightly better. You have to give the body a chance to recognize what it's trying to achieve, and then you can make the corrections. What we're hoping you do each time is to stay controlled with the movement, keep your hip forward, reach as far as you can, and then come back to center. You don't need to necessarily go as far as you possibly can and lose control and then fall onto that weight. Go as far as you can reach. An analogy here I'd use is imagine you stood on a stone in a river, tip in the river, you're making a ripple in the river, but you're not putting your foot through the water. If that makes sense. Okay. Next exercise. It's a single leg balanced toe touch. Okay, so on one leg, you're reaching down to the floor and then come back up again. It's good range here by Annie. She's got good range, and what she's doing here is hopefully is keeping the trail leg, the foot that's not on the floor, close to our center of mass. Don't want it out compensating for the movement. We want it close to our center of mass. She's reaching to the floor and coming all the way back up. Notice that nice flexion and a flexion of the ankle, knee, and hip. She's come all the way up, and make sure you fully extend at the top. You always come back up the center. That's very important. You don't stay in a flex position as you do the movement. So come all the way back up and then back down again. We'll go for 5 reps here and then change sides. Now the repetition is all about teaching the nervous system to do the movement. There isn't a prescribed amount of sets and reps on this in this moment, in this component of your athletic development. This is all about challenging the movement, getting good quality reps, and then recognizing when you're going too far and too much and stopping and taking your breather. So 5 reps is a good starting point here. If you feel you can do more, please continue to do more. Okay, so we're back on the right side. We'll do it again. We'll do the right side again 5 times, and then change 5 times. All the way down and reach, that's good. All the way back up, down, and all the way back up. So fully extend the hip on the top. It's very important. There's key characteristics here that are important, that you're reaching, you're stabilizing yourself, but you always start on this center point here. If you're at home and 5 is too much for you and you're doing 2 quality reps, absolutely perfect. Take your time and just make sure you're getting good quality repetition in the movement. Good. And slow it down. The important point here is that you don't use momentum to get you through the movement. Slow and controlled actions will cause the musculature to take control, and you really have to embed that into the program. So quickness and speed and letting gravity do the work is not what we're looking for. Nice controlled motion each time. Okay, good. On to the next one. It's slightly challenging it, but now on different planes of motion. We did a forward reach. Now we're going to do the forward reach, but further. So there's more activation of the glute because you're tilting that pelvis more forward. So there's going to be more length of the glute. So as you squat down, you're reaching forward. You're coming back up. But next time you go down, I want you to go to the right side, and then up again, and then go to the left side, which Annie will demonstrate now. So we'll do it twice through. So reaching forward, 10 degrees, more forward on your reach. Come all the way up again to center. Go, yeah, good. All the way back down. Reach to the side. Again, that trail leg, you see the way it went out to the side, is trying to counterbalance itself. But we want to challenge the glutes, the muscles, the hamstrings, and the lower limb in the complex of the calf to control that movement. So keep that leg close to your body, and then go again. You'll find that some plane of motion on the front and the left or the right is going to be more challenging than another, and that's something to look at. So we'll look at Annie here again when she goes on the inside, quite good control. We go on the outside. If you feel like the hip is bailing out, so too much excessive motion here coming out and driving the hip forward, close the angle. So don't go as far with the reach, go closer to your toe to get less of this bail and more of a sit-down approach into the movement. Yeah, change legs. So again, squatting down like before, touching and reaching in front, good, and then all the way up, and left and right. This is the component of your leg development that needs to be explored. This is all human movement. This is challenging joints, challenging bones, challenging muscles, and you have to let the nervous system develop a pattern to correct itself. Part of this will be looking for good movement and correcting good movement, but a lot of this is teaching the body and letting the body go into motion and coming out of it controlled. As long as you feel you're in control of the motion, the semantics of the movement does not particularly matter too much here. I want us to explore the stability of the movement, and that's the most important thing in this phase. So there are 3 stability exercises for you to try at home. Vary the repetition as you feel fit, but that was the kind of starting point for your exercise. So 5 repetitions on one, and on that one is around the clock face twice, and on the last one we did each one twice. So we're going to go into mobility now. We're going to do 3 exercises of mobility again, and each time in each week as we go through this component, every time you'll get a new exercise, a new thing to explore. It doesn't mean that these exercises become null or are not warranted in your program. They're very important all the way through, and you find an exercise that is beneficial for you, you should always put it into your program. Okay, so we start with 3 mobility exercises. The first one is anterior hip. Okay, so you get into position on a mat preferably, put one foot forward, hands across your chest, and try and stabilize your core and your hip so there isn't an arching. So you stabilize your hip and just lean into that movement as far as you possibly can. The stretch here should be on the hip flexor. You go in, 3-second hold, and then come all the way back out into center. Correct yourself if you feel like you're arching or bending too far forward. You want to maintain a straight line between the shoulder, the hip, and the knee on the floor. Okay, so you're leaning into it, not arching forward or arching back. You want to maintain that position and then just sit into it as far as you possibly can, holding that stretch and then coming out of it. We'll do 5 times, so 3-second hold, and then come back. Good. Yeah, always come back to center, always to that starting position. Good. And then change, yeah. So we do the other side. So often I find a lot of athletes stay in flexion a lot of the time. If you're one of those athletes that stays in flexion and doesn't fully extend, it means you can't engage your glutes as well as you possibly can. So this could be a good exercise for you if you feel like one of those. But again, like we said at the start, you might be an athlete with excessive mobility, and this mobility stuff may not be good for you. We want to empower you to make the right exercise choice as you progress through your program. Yeah, 5 repetitions. Now, do another round if you feel at the end of this you want to do more, but we want to give you a selection of exercises to choose from. The next one is your hamstring mobility exercises. So a lot of you may have tight hamstrings. So straight out in front of you, toe can be up. For now, we'll talk about the variety of tweaking exercises, about foot positions and everything else to get different engagement. But for now, it's toe up. The first one, you're going to reach forward as far as you possibly can, and then come back up the center. So when you reach forward, try and reach to your toe level. So it's not to the floor, it's more to your toe level. So do that one again, Annie. So reach to your toe level. Good. And then come back up the center, and then you're going to go left or right as you reach. Left or right. So you're going left first, and then come up, and then try the other side. We're going to do 3 rounds of that. While Annie's going through, I'll explain why we're doing 3 reaches. You've got 3 hamstrings. It's not just one. The hamstrings are made up of 3 different muscle groups, or muscles, sorry, and each one has a different insertion. So each hand reach biases the stretch on the hamstring, depending on if it's more medial, so inside or outside of the hamstring. And each one will tackle each hamstring slightly differently, so give you a better range and a better stretch of each hamstring. Good. And find the range here whereby you're not compensating. If you feel like you're starting to bend the knee a little bit, you may be reaching too far. Try and keep the leg straight, that's important, and then find your range within the movement. So we go on to the other side. Same again, reaching forward. That's good. And again, this is how you feel. Do you feel like this exercise is targeting where it should target? And if it isn't, make slight adjustments between the foot coming up or down, or how far you're reaching with the movement. Good. Excellent. Now, the last one we're going to do is the adductor stretch, okay? So another problematic area for footballers and hurlers is our grinds, right? So sometimes our grinds don't allow us to get into the movements we want to do because they become tight and short. So this is an exercise to lengthen up the adductors. So get into a position where you put the leg out in front. The important point here is that the ankle is rotating in, so it locks in the tibia or the ankle complex. Is very important that it locks in. I'll explain why in a second. So you're in a position here, hands across your chest. Important point here is that you're fully flexed, fully extended. You're not flexed from the hip. If you start flexing forward, it's going to take the demand off the adductors, what we don't want. So you're in this position. You're going to rotate away from me, Annie. Rotate away from me. Correct? And then back in again. What it's doing here is stretching the adductor in 3 planes of motion. So it's stretching it from the proximal end and the distal end, so the closest to you and the furthest away from you, and also in 3 planes of motion, because you're like twisting it like a towel as you do this. So it's locking at one end and you're twisting at the other end, so stretching the hamstring in 3 planes of motion, the adductors in 3 planes of motion. Good. If you're finding this in the lower back, to shorten the lever length, okay? And then maybe not go as much. Changing hand positions will change the structure and the feel of the adductor. So make sure you're feeling it where you should feel it as you progress through this exercise. Okay. So do the other side, same thing again, lock in that foot. Make sure that hip is fully extended before you start. The hip needs to be fully extended, otherwise you're taking the load off the adductors. So you're reaching towards me, that's good. Yeah, we go for 5 repetitions on here. And just make sure you do feel it in those adductors when you do the stretch. Okay, 2 more. That's good, keeping the hip forward and fully extended, being very tall and upright as you rotate. Perfect. Okay. So there's 6 exercises. 3 stability, 3 mobility for you to try at home. And really the emphasis at the start of the session was about trying to discover and empower yourself where you are along the continuum of stability and mobility. Because some may be more appropriate for others, it's about you discovering which is best for you. So have a play with each of the exercises, see which feels the best, and it might be a mixture of both, or it might be all that you need in your program. But really the onus is on you to empower yourself to discover what's best for you moving forward as a player. This is the speed and agility component of the athletic development program for the advanced athlete. In this phase, we're going to talk a lot about linear mechanics and the mechanics of the motion before we're going to talk about the max speed element. We really want you to build up your pace and build up your speed because it's quite detrimental to do it too early in the program. So what we're going to talk about today is going to be beneficial throughout the program, but really try and prepare you for those later stages where we start returning to our sport and we start doing speed for real. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is our A-skip. So we got a demonstration here of the A-skip. You want to start, Rowan? So we're looking here for good arm drive, looking forward. The most important thing, though, is that the toe is up as it hits the floor. It's going to walk back again, no, just walk back. So 10 meters, so if you just want to walk back to the start, yeah. So it's just 10 meters of a track if you have at home, inside or outside, doesn't really matter. The most important thing here is the mechanics. So take your time when you go back in. It's really good mechanics, and the most important thing that he did was toe up when he hits the floor. So each left and right, toe up as you hit the floor. Look at the mechanics, try and get that motion right. So he's looking forward, cyclic action in the hands, toe up as he hits the floor. It's underneath his center of mass. That's really important. The next thing that we're going to go on to is the B skips. So the A skip is kind of preparing for the acceleration. The B skip is more for the maximum speed element, but obviously we're not doing max speed yet, but it's all in preparation for the phases that are about to come. So B skips, very similar in a setup, but this time, as you'll see, it's the leg coming around in that cyclic action. And the coaching point here is that the balls of the foot hits the floor, scrapes the floor as it goes around. So she'll go back to the start again, do another repetition. So you'll do the same at home, 2 repetitions over a 10-meter track. So the leg cycles round, hits the floor, balls of the feet hits the floor as the foot is coming around, all the way through to the end. So there is that impact on the floor, and that is the manful on the hamstrings. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is straight line running. So straight line running, so you get your posture in a nice straight line. You're going to accelerate as you get to 10 meters, so make sure there's a bit of a runway off the track. You'll hit the floor at the balls of your feet, and you'll accelerate as you get down the track. Okay, so we have our subject at the top, trying to push down force into the floor, accelerate as you get to the top. Good. And you can see his acceleration as you get down. Make sure there's a bit of a runway at the end. So once you get to 10 meters, you stop or you slow down, but you're accelerating all the way up to the top of the track. Again, this is preparation for the hamstrings in a very functional capacity. So again, straight line running, same thing again, Ron. Pushing down into the floor, all the way through, straight posture, perfect. Really, really good. So that's the technique we're looking for there, and that's going to benefit for us as we move forward. Next thing we're going to go on to is ankling. Again, it's all different components of a speed or a sprint mechanics. So Annie shows us a low level ankling. Yeah. So here, the foot is coming up and over the ankle. Okay, so let her finish, and I'll show you just a little bit so what's actually happening in slow motion. The ankle is coming up the shin but around the ankle, and it's landing under a center of mass. So that cyclic action just coming around. So it's very low level, slight knee bend just coming over the ankle, coming up the shin and over the ankle. Okay, same again. Very good. Now there's a massive coordination element to all this, so it's going to demand a little bit of practice, a little bit of coordination, a little bit of you doing your homework on this one. So we'll do that one again, Annie, but this time the high knee one. So this is ankling again, but of a high knee variation. Okay, so a bit higher, this time the cycle comes around the knee as opposed to around to the ankle. So some of this, if you've never done it before, it's going to feel and look a bit funny, but that's absolutely okay. It's about that coordination element of all this. So take your time with it, and you will benefit each session and every time you do it. And it's that coordination of muscles and coordination movements that's very important here. So if we go back onto Annie, she's going to do the same thing again. So try and practice what you see. And it's the mechanics here, and it's that exploration of movement that's going to transfer when we go into our speed mechanics, okay? So that's very, very important. The last bit on the linear mechanics and preparation for our speed work is our bounding. Now, bounding can be done in two ways. Bounding can be done from a horizontal displacement point of view or a vertical displacement point of view. For this purpose of this and where the phase is going, we want a more vertical emphasis. So you're not jumping as far out as you can, you're jumping as high as you possibly can in a almost a skipping motion. So if we get some demonstration, so he's getting as high up as he can as opposed to as far out as he can. And just notice here again that point about coming back to that point again of the toe coming up as it hits the floor is one of the most crucial elements of this exercise. It's got one more repetition. So you at home are doing the same thing as what we're all doing here. Keep the toe up as you hit the floor. Toe up, get as high as you possibly can. Swing that knee up, swing that knee up. That's good. Perfect, over 10 meters, and then relax. Okay, so that's kind of preparation work, a warm-up necessarily, but you would have done your stability and mobility before this, and this is preparation for what we're about to go into now. So, if we come on here, Annie, if you want to come on first and do the acceleration, and Ron, you can do it after. So, we want to teach acceleration, okay? But we want to teach it in a non-predisposed fashion. What that I mean is, sprinters start obviously in the blocks, the lower, but if you predispose yourself to always accelerate in this position here, you're not nurturing the whole environment of the sport that you're in. So you're never in this position all the time. You're usually neutral, and you usually don't know which way you have to go because it's a multi-directional sport and it's very reactive in its nature. So we want to transfer that. So get into a good position, what we call a jump position or a leg position, and the mechanics here of the movement are, it's almost a credit card under your heels, slight flexion of the hip, slight flexion of the knee in that position, the hands are active and ready to go. Once you're in that position, and you can relax on it because you'll get some DOMs doing that, once you're in that position, it should feel like you're able to jump up, you're able to rotate left or right or turn over your head or sprint forward. You're not predisposed to going one way or another. That's what a neutral position is about. And if we can teach ourselves to accelerate from those positions, we'll better transfer to our sport, and that's the most important thing. So into that neutral position again, and I'll talk to you about the first movement. So accelerate when you're ready to that 7 meters in front of you. Off you go. Good. Perfect. And what you'll notice what Annie did, and if you're going to go up next one, what Annie did here really well was she got into a good position, and then there was a neutral step or a back step or a zero step, whatever you want to call it, into that position there. And what that encourages is that forward lean. It's that center of mass in front of you in order to get into good mechanics of acceleration. And that back drop step is very important, and it's utilizing the stretch shortening cycle of the calves to get into a propulsive position to accelerate you forward. So do the same thing again. And accelerate, yeah, driving you forward, perfect. We're going to do this 5 times, okay, so we'll let you come back in. We're going to do 5 repetitions, so Annie, you want to go again? So I'll give you time to come back and walk back into position. At this time, I want you to alternate left and right, okay? So you might have been always driving back on your right side, but sometimes you might have to drive back on your left side. So make sure these next 2 reps are on the opposite side of what you did before. So alternate the movement. So this is athletic position, drop step into good mechanics for acceleration. Off we go. Good. So decent. And the other thing about it, when you get into a good position, then you're looking at hand drives, then you're looking at forward lean, strong posture, all that stuff. But it starts with that split stance, that almost drop step into a forward lean position, and then allows you to get into mechanics. So the first thing is the drop step. So we're on to our 4th rep now. So try the other side. Good. And accelerate forward. Very good. Last repetition then, Hanny. So what you don't want to do, just be careful at home that you don't start leaning forward into it and then it becomes a false step to go forward. You don't want to catch yourself forward too much. You want to be in a neutral position, be ready to go, and then react to it. So I'm just going to, for the viewers at home and you're doing a session, I'm going to say go when you should go. So just get yourself ready, prepare yourself for the movement, think about what you need to do, and in 3 seconds, go. Good. Perfect. So the mechanics start coming together and you see it. So we're going to do that once more for you advanced guys. We're going to do that once more. So you get a bit of a breather, have a bit of a drink. And really this may be a new movement for you. This may be a new kind of way of of teaching acceleration. I think it's a very, very important part of acceleration because it's contextual driven. It's what your sport demands of you. Your sport doesn't demand you to get into preset position. It demands you to go off a neutral position, and that's what this is. Even though we are going forward and we'll do different movements off different sides soon, but it's really trying to encourage you to be comfortable going off any position, and that's the most important thing. Okay, so we're going on to our second set now. It's the same thing again. Don't fall forward. Make sure your center of mass is underneath you, but you're in that position to jump from, to change direction, left and right, to sprint forward. So the first repetition again. Off we go. Good, good. And the hands are driving in. The mechanics are coming into the movement. Very good. Very good. Walk yourself back. So this should be done over about 7 to 10 meters if you have it at home. Of course, it's better if you're on a pitch or on a field or something like this, but we all have maybe 5-10 meters that we can utilize somewhere in our neighborhood or whatever, and just try and set this up so you can practice the mechanics. The most important thing is the start position, getting into a good athletic position, and then driving off. Yep. Good. Perfect. Really good. You can see the mechanics, and maybe at home you can see the mechanics actually developing in the athletes that we have here. You can see the movement getting a bit more refined even after a few reps, because they're thinking, I mean, it's all conscious at the minute and eventually it becomes subconscious. You don't even think about it and transfers to your game. But for now, as we're learning, we do have to think about the movement, the coordination, where we want to go, where our foot position is, how it feels, where's the center of mass, everything else. So off we go on the third rep. Good. Yeah, good. As you can see, that athlete is getting into a nice position. He's not initially, I think he was stepping so far back that it was like almost a split stance, but now he's feeling where he needs to go, where the step needs to be. It doesn't need to be all the way back. It just needs to create the center of mass forward. So he's in a much better position and the mechanics of the movement look better. And that'll be the same for everybody at home. Last 2 reps. Good. Perfect. Really good. Last rep, again, I'll say go on the last rep just to add some reactive element to it. But you know where you're going, just please don't be predisposed to go forward. Again, just always practicing that neutral position, good position, and then we're going to go from there on my shout. Okay, about 3 seconds I'll say go, just get ready. Go! Good. Good. Okay, you'll almost see there, and this might happen, this is when we're learning a new skill. So he was perfect on a really good exercise, and then when you added in the reaction element, you see when you step back, it's almost like a little forward lean to go forward. I'm exaggerating for effect, but it's almost like that to go forward. So that reactive element needs to be taught into the program. We'll develop that over the time. So get the mechanics right, really good mechanics, and then it challenges a little bit when you add the reactive element. Okay, so we're going to try some turning now. Okay. So we did forward, now we're just going to do silent. So Annie, you want to come first? We're going off to our left shoulder, and the mechanics here is the same principles as we did, only a slight variation or a slight addition to it. So we're stepping and we're turning. Okay, so it's dual is together. We don't want to just turn and then go from here because that's not utilizing the stress shortening cycle. So if we turn and then drive our hips, it's that preloading of the calf that will drive us forward, and then also the turning mechanics allows us to get into that forward lean position. So it's just like what we were doing, but now we're turning off our side and then accelerating forward. So practicing turning off our left and our right. So Annie's going to do the first one. So we're turning left. At home, try the same thing. Yep, when you're ready. Little step and then drive. Go. Good, give yourself a breather. Just a little bit on the mechanics there. So when you turn, so a little bit what Annie did was put some weight onto that right side before she drives off. I don't necessarily want that. It's not a shift of balance. It's more of a drive to accelerate. Your weight transfers slightly onto the right, but then onto the left to accelerate. It's not absorbing it all onto the right to then go left. So it's again just the mechanics to get you into that position, open up the hips, and then it's a straightforward acceleration from there. Okay. Same side again. Good, really good. Yep, so we go down to the top now. So you would be at the top. So we're just going to go the other direction. You're going to go on your left side. So you're going to push off with your left foot going into that direction. Again, 10, 7 meters, whatever you have at home. Okay, so you get on to Annie again and she's looking at the mechanics. Get into that nice jump position whenever you're ready. Yeah, good. Good, so there's a drop, there's a drive and a turn. Is what we're looking for. So it's a drive and a turn at the same time. Okay, when you're ready. Perfect. Good. We're just going to do now over our left and right shoulder. So same thing down here. So again, the principle doesn't change, but it's a bit more complexity now. We've got a lot more rotation to happen. And we want to drive, again, like we said, but we don't want to go outside, too much outside our center mass to turn, because that's not economical. But we do want to plant our foot and get into that rotation position to try and get our hips moving forward. The analogy I'd like to use is that table football example where, you know, the table football, when you play on the table and the bar is through the body. Imagine that bar is through your head and you're swiveling on yourself as you turn, right? So imagine that bar through my head. As I turn, I'm dropping and turning myself, and I'm getting into that nice forward lean position to sprint forward again. So again, it's just all about practicing the mechanics, getting it into the movement vocabulary, and then as you return back to sport, your movement and your turning becomes more efficient. So get up, set up in the leg position once more. That doesn't change, and then try the mechanics. Good, good, good. I really like what Annie did there, slowed it down for her to understand, her body to understand and get comfortable with it, and then you can add the complexity of speed. Slowing something down and getting the mechanics right is the first part of learning a skill. And then you can add a complexity of quickness and whatever. Okay, so then we're doing our left shoulder once more. Good. Great. Okay, let's go to the other side. Trying our other side now. So we turned over our left shoulder, we're turning over our right shoulder this time. Same principles apply. Good position, swivel and sprint. Good. Yep. So just give you time at home. Obviously we've got two people here and you might be on your own. So just give you a second to come back in. Just every time we're just challenging our movement. So get into a good position. Give you a couple of seconds, get into position, and remember what we're trying to do. Just think about the mechanics, think about the feedback, give yourself the opportunity to think about what I'm doing, what I have to do. I have to turn and sprint and get into a nice position to accelerate. You'll find yourself, if you can do this very naturally when you return to the sport, if you're not doing this long turn and you're more efficient in your turn, it'll just give you that second or two on the pitch, which is going to be advantageous, obviously, to your performance. Okay, off we go. Perfect. Okay, 2 more reps, there and back, and we're done. So we do 2 on your left, 2 on your right. Same thing again, you know the principles of the movement. Yeah, see, and this is perfect. This is a great example because we're live and we don't know what's going to come. So this is could happen at home, and it's that the athlete is trying to self-learn, is developing our technique, and that's really important, and we have to practice that and put onuses on that. I actually have to know what I'm doing rather than just turning up and doing a movement. Think about what you have to do, absorb it as a movement principle, and try and execute it in the best way you can. Good. Yep. Okay, just give you a couple of seconds to rest at the top. Obviously you come down, but we have our subject here. So again, nearly there. 3 more repetitions, doing left and right. Yep, whenever you're ready. Good, it's the last repetition now, and all I want you to do, so you've got 2 repetitions. What I'm going to say to you here is I'm going to say left or right, and you've got to decide then how to turn over my left or right, okay? So just be neutral, facing away from me, I'll say left or right, and you just rotate that way, okay? Okay, so get in a good position, I'll say in about 3 seconds. Left, good, and accelerate down. Notice how it changes. Does it slow you down? Does it speed you up? That's an interesting concept. You probably guess which way I'm going to go now, but set up and away. Set up and away. Left. Just try to confuse you a little bit there. You probably thought I was going to go right. But anyway, so the whole point here is to develop a movement pattern, understand it, break it down in your head, and then add some complexity to it from an acceleration point of view. Okay, we're nearly there, and the last part I'm just going to do myself because we don't have the room and the equipment in here to show you the whole picture of what we're doing. But I said at the start that this component's all about developing the speed sensibly and logically, and not going into the max speed as a priority of this program. Yes, it is speed and agility, but we're going to take our time to get up to our max speed, and then we're going to expose max speed from a reactive point of view, then also from an endurance point of view, so speed endurance. But for now, we've done a lot of acceleration, we've done a lot of turning and twisting and all that, so we're going to take the acceleration out at this point, or I just take a step back. So imagine these cones are a little bit wider apart, they're maybe 5-10 meters apart. I want you to jog the first 5-10 meters, and then as you get past the 5-10 meters, then open up into a stride length of about 75% of max, right? So you'll do the jog to here, is taking the acceleration component out of the speed, and then you start sprinting at about 75%, and then slow down gradually, okay? Take your rest, walk back to the start, and then we want you to do 6 reps on this first week, okay? 6 reps of that, taking the acceleration out of it, slowly building up, and then 75% of your speed. It may feel, and you will probably feel I could do a lot more than this, and that's a good thing, all right? We don't want you to be maximum effort in this. We don't want to push it too hard and push it too far because you can't get it back. We can always build, we can always layer up, and it's all about gathering momentum in this program, not so much starring it from the start and doing your max speed. That's just a recipe for disaster. If we can build up slowly, good mechanics, good movement, it'll benefit you throughout the season. It'll definitely benefit you when you return to sport. So stick with us. We're going to start adding in some more complexity as we go on, but I hope you enjoy that. And that's the first part of the speed agility.
We're now going to take it onto a cool down stretch just to finish off the workout. Okay, so for the cool down stretch, you're going to hold each stretch for about 30 to 45 seconds. And you're going to flow through a routine here from standing position down onto the floor and then back up onto the feet. Okay, so Henry, we're going to just start off with a stretch for the posterior chain, so along the calves, hamstrings, glutes, into your back, and we're going to stretch through the chest as well. So I'm going to get you to take your hands behind your back, interlock your fingers, and then you're going to pull your arms back to stretch through your chest. From that position, feet pointing forward, just about shoulder width apart, you're going to hinge forward at the hips and try bring your arms up as high as you can to the ceiling. So you're pulling your hands up to the ceiling and trying to keep your legs nice and straight on this. Good, so we're going to hold here for 30 seconds on each stretch. Really pulling those arms up. And really exaggerate that pull of the chest. And as you hold this movement, try exaggerate that pull. Pulling back through the shoulders, pulling the hands towards the ceiling. Good, so just holding for another 5 seconds, really exaggerating that stretch and just using a nice slow controlled breathing pattern here, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Okay, keeping that position, Henry, bring your hands down onto the mat. Good, you're going to walk forward, you're going to drop onto one knee, and you're going to bring the opposite foot forward, and we're going to take a hip flexor stretch here. Good, so you're going to lean forward, and what you're looking for here is a nice stretch on the front of the hip. If you're not feeling that stretch, you can just walk your front foot forward a little bit more. If you're too far back, you're not going to get that stretch. So your knee here in front doesn't want to come over the toes. You're going to walk it forward and hold that stretch. Again, holding each stretch for about 30 seconds. If you can hold it for a little bit longer, you can go up to 45 seconds. Okay, let's keep that position, and we're going to take it now to the hamstring on the opposite side. So you're going to sit back, you're going to allow the toes come up towards you, and you're going to reach forward towards the foot. Okay, so as you're performing this stretch, you want to reach your hands towards the foot, but don't force the stretch and don't force any of these stretches. So just stretching to the point of tension and never pain on these movements. So you're just reaching towards that foot. If you can't reach the foot or the ankle, don't worry about it. Don't force the movement. So again, holding for about 30 seconds here, just helping these muscles to stretch out and kickstart that recovery. Good. Okay, Henry, you're going to switch legs. Opposite leg forward. You're going to push forward for that hip flexor stretch. If you're not feeling that, again, walk that front foot forward a little bit more. And just gently sitting forward. And let your torso come forward with you. You don't want to pull back on this movement. So just keep that spine neutral and hinge forward. Just trying to find that stretch on the front of that back leg. Again, using your breath, deep breaths into the nose, out through the mouth, remembering that that breath can help mobilize the joints and muscles. And sitting back for your hamstring stretch on this side. Again, reaching towards the foot, but not forcing the movement. If you can't reach the foot or ankle, just reach down along the leg as far as you can. If you find that the muscle is releasing out and you can reach a little bit further, take it that little bit further. And on each exhale, imagine that muscle relaxing. And relax. Perfect. Okay, let's face this direction for the next one, Henry. We're going to take it now to the inner thigh. Take your hands down in front. You're going to bring your left leg out to the side. Toes pointing forward. And you're going to press back, and you should feel this stretch along the inside of the left leg. If you're struggling to find that stretch, you're just going to walk the supporting knee out a little bit wider and gently press back into it. You can rotate through the torso and sink down into it if you want to find a little bit of a deeper stretch. Feeling that, Henry? Again, about 30 to 45 seconds. And you can switch legs. Good. Okay, straight leg on the stretching leg. Sit back into it. Try find that stretch along the inside of the leg. Again, if you're struggling to find that stretch, you can walk the supporting knee out a little bit more, or you can rotate your torso towards the supporting knee. Again, using your breath, relax the muscles on the exhale. Good. Okay, Henry, I'll get you to bring your hands to the front of the mat again. From here, you're going to lift onto your toes. Nice straight leg position. Walk back to a standing position. Trying to keep the legs as straight as possible. And we're just going to finish off. You can stay facing that direction, Henry. We're going to finish off with a quad stretch. So you're going to keep your supporting leg nice and soft on this. I want you to reach back, grab a hold of your foot behind, and pull your heel towards your back side. Now, as you're doing this, the supporting knee staying soft to stabilize. And pulling your heel nice and close to the back side. If your knee is out here in front, you're not going to feel that stretch. So pull it back in line with the opposite leg or back beyond it if you can. Also trying not to let that knee flare out to the side. So keep it centered, keep it pulled back, and hold that stretch on the quad. Again, 30 to 45 seconds, and switch it over. Soft supporting leg. Keep that balance. If you are struggling to balance here, you can just hold on to something and get that stretch. So again, knee centered, pull it back. Try not to let it come out in front. Try not to let it come out to the side. Pull it back, stay centered, and feel that stretch on the front here on the quad. Again, using your breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. And relax. Good. Okay, and that's it for our session today. Thank you very much for joining us, and looking forward to seeing you in the next session.